Ooh, I'm dead in the water. Let's see. This. It's
If we watch the Zoom, does that count as attendance, or do we have to like be in the Zoom at the time?
I don't watch at any point in time. I pop them into what I do is from here, wait. I'm running a little slow, I think, in this class and another one. The one I've kind of been making sure I make sure all the videos try to get up pretty quickly is my methods class, because I've kind of got them doing stuff where they kind of have the right question, sequence kind of thing. So kind of give them a little bit of priority on that, but YouTube only lets me upload so many videos.
I said no because I'm just gonna be going racing for the rest of this week.
No,
The
you'll
web
just,
service is
yeah, I like that. You know, I'll pop those in black class videos, and I haven't set the track attendance or track track attendance basically there, so it'll show me who does what. Well, let's see, we're about 3 minutes out. 3 minutes out. I'm gonna run down the halls. I think we're at a review point. I know I was looking through there earlier. Looking at the test, it's like we've talked about most of those things on the test. It's just different ways that they present that kind of information. And so, let's see, this evidence. Make sure I've got the outline. Make sure we've gone through that. Presumptions. Yeah. Because we've been talking about direct versus circumstantial inferences. Yeah. Okay, so there's some things we need to talk about in that one, and then we'll do a review about inferences and reasonableness. So that's always the fun one. Reasonable. What is reasonable?
Class is kind of quiet. There used to be a lot of people in this class.
Yeah.
I do it online now or Zoom.
I'll be on
I do it
Zoom
on
for the rest.
because, well, I live an hour and 15 minutes away. So,
Oh, yeah.
but like today I came in because I'm taking methodology, and I don't like asking a lot of questions over Zoom. So if I come in the class, it's because I have a lot of questions in a class, and I got 3 of them in a row, and I can't get home in time to get on the Zoom. So that's kind of why I'm here today. Have you had methodology yet? No. He's got us doing some crazy stuff in there. It's looking at a lot of data. That's what's confusing when you start looking at sheets and sheets and sheets and sheets of data. That's crazy. This class is pretty easy.
Yeah.
Hell, when we have something to do today, that's the first thing we gotta do.
Are you a baseball player?
Yeah.
You look like a baseball player.
What gave it away?
How's your team?
They're gonna be pretty good this year.
Think so?
Brought in a new coach and a whole bunch
Oh,
of
yeah.
guys.
Yeah. Are you, what year of school are you in?
I'm a junior.
Junior, oh yeah, she got 2 years left. So you guys play in the spring and the fall?
Well, they do squads and like scrimmages this fall, but it's spring season.
This is spring.
Like I'm gonna have to leave the spots early today because we have near squad too.
Yeah.
I still gotta run and grab my shit.
I took a few classes of Connors, and they have a pretty good baseball team.
Connor's always good. Perry Key's a dickhead though.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was probably the coach when he was.
So what do you play? You look like probably an outfielder or something.
Well, I was in high school. I'm a pitcher. Man.
Pitcher? You got long legs. Look like you could probably run pretty fast.
Not too many left-handed outfielders make it to college.
Yeah. How fast is your fastball? They don't have a.
90.
That's pretty good.
Decent for a lefty, I guess.
Yeah, I never was very good at baseball. I always like to hit people in height. I was a football guy.
I do it too. Somebody pissed me off with it. That's
Yeah.
My dad would make our pitchers do that. He got mad at other teams.
actually, when I was faced the honors when I was at Indiana. One of their guys bunted on me.
Oh.
So Died to the rich, like pulled out of things.
Wow.
Did you take any ag classes in you?
Hmm.
My grandma's.
Well, I would have been at
Oh, brothers.
police survey.
Yeah.
But I went down and I bought this old convertible. I got this thing for convertibles. So you got motorcycles, I got convertibles.
I don't have a motorcycle.
Well, that's why I like convertibles, because motorcycles are dangerous.
Heck, yeah.
But convertibles, you can still get the,
Yeah, you get the wind and you don't have to pop like a water balloon. That's what I did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was down to get my plates for it this morning. Never go to the tag office on a Monday morning and expect to get to a 10 o'clock class when you got to drive an hour and 15 minutes. It doesn't work. So I sit down there and the computers weren't working. So
Oh. It's okay. You're gonna say something?
Yeah, I need to leave this class a little early today because I got an inner sport at 2.
Okay, so we got a couple things to talk about, and then we'll do a review for the first exam, and I'll open that up, how to do to do it. If you don't make it through the entire review, I'll post the thing up on Blackboard so I have access to it there. Basically, I'm just gonna be kind of going over some of the points, see if there's anything in here that we didn't cover. I was kind of going through it and just double checking it. About 30 minutes ago. I looked like we covered just about anything in it. But there I was looking at the outline, and there was I think one thing I saw here that we didn't talk about that we probably should a little bit. And that's gonna be over.
that's over the test.
Yeah. So we're just gonna basically be doing a review today.
You post that already, or you can do it today?
Yeah, well, I've got it right here. I just gotta click.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I just gotta click a button.
I didn't see it, but I didn't look at it today.
Yeah. So today we're gonna go through this outline because there's a couple of sections, I think literally just one section where it talks about presumptions that because I talk about the normal ones, I don't think I talk about stuff that, how that works in terms of reasonableness there. And then after that, I think that's basically it, but we'll take a quick look here. In the meantime, what's going on in the world?
A lot of crazy people trying to kill Trump, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
It's another trying assassination. People eating cats. I talked about that.
Yeah, we did talk about that one. It's one of those things that's
What
it's so
else?
interesting because
I'm too much into politics.
Yeah, well, it's one that's it's like the divergence of worlds is so weird because it's like on one side you hear it's like the cat stuff, and then if you're listening to the debate, what you'll hear is they fact check that, but we can't establish that from official channels. But if you go and you listen to the people on the streets, like you get on social media, you can find what half a dozen people whether it's personal firsthand, yeah, my cat's now missing, and I saw this person eating a cat kind of thing, to I'm worried about it because I've been hearing rumors about it. So it just spreads like wildfire. So it's like, does it happen? Oh yeah. How bad is it? I'm really curious. I don't know, but the fact they're saying it doesn't happen at all really makes me wonder because I lived in Little Rock for probably 10 years, something like that. Heck, it may have been longer. One of the times when I first lived in Little Rock, one of the areas wasn't so nice. And with some migrants who lived across the street. When it came time for Thanksgiving and that kind of stuff, it's like, hey, they got a turkey in the backyard. Oh, better get the neighbor kids from keep them from watching Turkey Days tomorrow. So you're gonna start seeing some feathers fly, right? Because that's the way that people do it. We still do that now. I mean, farming, that kind of stuff. It's like they do that all the time. It's really weird though that you'd go and take someone else's cat. I mean, it is a delicacy, the pets kind of thing. But the way the state's laws are written, what's really interesting there is in some places you don't have the ability to defend your property. Some places you do, and then you have the PETA people where it's like in some places the laws for animal cruelty will exceed that for people. It's like that's all over the place. I can't make heads or tails of it. Really interesting stuff. All right. So we talked about burden of proof, we need to talk about burden of production, burden of persuasion. I didn't talk about those too. They are just like what they sound like. So burden of proof. Anytime you're dealing with trying to move towards guilty, that's going to be on the prosecution. Innocence doesn't have to be proven. All I have to do is work with doubts. If I have enough doubt, there we go. If I have other facts that help build doubt, excellent. Moving to the affirmative defenses. I remember how much this textbook talks about. I know we talk about it a lot in criminal law, so I'm not going to go too heavy into it, but I'll say like those are going to be your insanity defenses, your duress, necessity, all of those types where it's like duress. Someone put me into a position where I basically have no choice here. That's duress. Necessity would be like, I'm lost out in the woods, I see a cabin, I'm gonna break in and see what food's in there, stay warm. Right, there's no crime there, there's a bigger issue there. Burden of persuasion, that's got to do with those inferences, right? So it's direct and circumstantial inferences. When it comes to, yeah, that, if you're gonna overcome those presumptions, that's
Let me ask
persuasion.
you a question about that. Let's say you are out of the woods
Mhm.
and you say you do break into somebody's cabin
Mhm.
because you're gonna freeze if you don't.
Yeah.
Is that a prosecutorial thing that he makes the decision, or does it go to trial and the jury makes the
Usually
decision?
they don't do that because it's one of those things that they can see that quite directly.
Yeah,
Since it's an affirmative defense, they can probably bring a trial to it, but you just establish that fact. Usually it's pretty cut and dry because it's something like, how long were you out in the woods kind of thing, and
but a prosecutor has a discretion, right?
there's some in there.
Pretty much, okay.
What you'll see is in areas where that's more common, the more rural areas, particularly up north, because they'll have statutes against that stuff to get it more, because it is more common there. Like, ooh, nasty, rough ways to go about that one. Inferences that may be drawn from facts proven. We already talked about that. This is the one I wanted to talk about right here. Inferences that the people intend the natural and probable consequences of their deliberate acts. Okay, so that's one of those things you have to be very, very careful with. That's to some degree a jury instruction thing, because if you make it to where it's not something that the jury determines, that they say, just based on an action, I'm going to determine the intent. That's not necessarily what's done. You have to determine that reasonableness. Is it something that's a reasonable or natural or likely? All of those things come into the fold. You have to figure those out case by case basis with what you're dealing with, right? And so that's where that reasonableness starts coming back in, right? Is it reasonable? That's going to be one of those you can spread out across frequently. All right, circumstantial evidence alone can be used to obtain criminal conviction. When it says you must prove the corpus delicti crime, basically that you've got something there. Both parts can be proved by circumstantial evidence. For example, we have a missing person who's presumed dead. That's presumption. I'm gonna have to establish that. I use that circumstantially because I won't have a dead body. Just have missing person and reasons. That peep again, or was that just that? It's just that one. Okay. Cool.
How much evidence is there if you don't have a body? I mean, it's like,
It's one of
that's
those.
pretty hard to prove that they're dead.
Yeah, it can be. It's one of those things that you have to start getting into all the specifics. It's like reasons for the person would be gone, reasons that they wouldn't be. As it speak to their character, the behaviors, the patterns, that kind of things. This is a deviation from normal behaviors, all of that good stuff. And so if it's like the person's missing, they were expected to be in a certain location. They got a good reason not to miss it. Yeah, that starts happening that pretty fast, that kind of thing. Search. We are talking about Bean's mode of opportunity, modus operandi. I don't know if we're talking about that so much. When we say the word MO, you guys have used it a lot, I'm sure. What does it mean? We'll see you guys. I know you know what it means.
What?
MO.
Oh,
Modus operandi.
motor operandi. Yeah.
What does it mean?
Reason for the person doing it.
Close. Getting really close. What is it? Sort of like a standard operating behavior. This is what you commonly do. This is the mode, how you handle things, and look, it fits with what we're doing here, right? That'd be like something like this is a
Like standard procedure.
yeah, this is a gun robbery gone bad. Type of gun that was used was a small caliber revolver, such and such. Just so it turns out you got a history of using small caliber revolvers for this kind of thing. And look what happens here. This fits your MO as we start building in those things. All right. So things that cannot be built. We start talking about some of them. Remember that one, cessation of signature crimes after suspect's arrest. I'd have to go back and look at that one. It's gonna have to do with which crimes they're going to be. Actually, I have to look down back up because I don't remember where to pick up that one. We already talked about guilt, testifying. Person doesn't testify, you cannot draw an inference from that. People do though, so be careful that you don't. Evidence prohibited by rape shield laws and other things like that, right? Because sometimes what they're trying to do is not directly what they're trying to do. Okay. Here
What's the bottom cessation? What's that? Signature?
Yeah, that's one I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's gonna have to do with, when crimes stop, like you're gonna be dealing with, you know, probably things like abandonment, things of that nature. So when did that actually stop? Was it because you got arrested? And so you're saying you abandoned your plot because you got arrested? Or is it going to do something else? There's gonna be some interaction effects there. I have to look at that one again. So like I said, this behavior stopped. You're arrested, yeah, you can't make a conclusion off that with that behavior.
Of
If it's something that's like conspiratorial, right? Conspiracy can continue, maybe not. There's all kind, I'd have to look back in that one though.
What's a
That's-
signature crime?
Yeah, that's gonna have to do with this. It's not gonna have to do with the interceding
Yeah.
facts of where responsibility lies there. It's where it's gonna deal with that. And you shouldn't make that inference is what they're saying. Using direct and circumstantial evidence. I mean, you can look at these things and you can see those easily which ones those are correct. You found something, that's correct. Do you have the intent to deliver? How do you do that? Well, there are different ways. Sometimes it's just the amount kind of thing. It's more than what you'd be carrying for personal use. When you start getting distribution and other charges, that kind of thing. Proofs of internet in child pornography. What I want to say about that one, because that was actually pretty complex. I don't know if I want to talk about that one because that one gets pretty dark. Including physical and sexual abuse in children. Okay, you can go with direct, it was witnessed, you have the witness statement. It can be indirect, as in you have medical testing, that kind of thing that proves that stuff's happening. What I was going to say here related to internet stuff. That'd be something like, how many charges do you get for the internet pornography that you have? The child pornography that you have. Okay, do you get one for each individual image or each time you transmit it? If you take a picture of a picture, it is a new picture. That's a second charge. Right? That's how that stuff works. So it's like yeah, it's a stacking kind of thing there too. Shaken babysitter thing, and it was a driver vehicle. Yeah, circumstantial evidence. I mean, you can get direct evidence. Circumstantial can do the same thing. Proving corpus delicti, we've talked about that. You establish there's been harm there. Sum total of everything that's presented and its inferences. Sufficiency, evidence requirement to justify. Okay. So there's actually a couple things I want to talk about there that's involved in evidence. Is kind of more procedural as well. If at a point in time that the prosecution rests its case, if they haven't established their case, a judge can basically dismiss the case right then and there. There's a
Motion to dismiss.
There you go.
But
That's it.
but doesn't the
Mhm.
defense have to bring that up? Can the
Yes.
judge just do that?
The defense can bring it up. The judge can look at it too, just on its face kind of thing. Here, what they're talking about though is like a level within. When you're dealing with the evidence, is it sufficient alone, that kind of thing. So I think that's what they're keying in there. I want to check that one again too. Perfect. Sufficiency. So how much is there? Do you meet those standards? Usually for we talked about we move like from information or grand jury hearing, probable cause, you move into the court case, you move to reasonable doubt. Here, you meet those levels by the time that case rests. Does that evidence stack up enough to find that? Let's see, use of presumptions, inferences. Presumption is defined as a rule of law enabling party favors to get their cases. Jury without presenting direct evidence. Yeah, that's the same thing. Reasonable conclusions or deductions. Presumption is a jury instruction. Okay, I should probably talk a little about jury instructions a little bit more. As I mentioned, if you word those things wrong, you can invalidate the entire case, right? Whether it's the statutes or the instructions themselves, they're written to where the average person should be able to interpret them. I think we've already talked about that's not always the case. Okay, some sentences, presumptions can be unconstitutional. Talks about classifications of evidence. That's probably going to be things like mere evidence, instrumentality, stuff like that. Different types of evidence too. And different classifications. I think that basically covers the last bit of the stuff we need to talk about in there. Yeah, rules of law, do not prove trying evidence. Yeah, presumptions or instructions. Yeah, that's basically it. Cool. So that means we can do a review. Okay, so the first thing that you need to know, boom. One through 10. 14 too. You know what I mean, right? Amendments. Okay, you'll have a number of questions about what right falls under what number, or what number has which rights, that kind of thing. Those types of things. You'll keep those straight, right? It's
Yeah.
asking about speed of trial, which one do they commonly attribute that amendment to? Due process, which one's that? So on and so forth. If they start talking about grand jury review,
Bill of Rights, the
Yeah.
14th Amendment.
well, it's like which amendment would guarantee that you have a that bail or things like that. Yeah. So they got those. I'm trying to think if there's anything else related to those amendments on my mind. I don't think so. I think that's about it.
Is there any other amendments that really deal with? I don't think there is there?
Not really. These are the big ones.
The 1 through 10 don't, all of them don't.
No, but they're important to keep in mind, especially some of the less common ones like 9 and 10, where it's rights not enumerated for number 9. So if we don't say it, doesn't mean you don't have it. And number 10 is anything that's not at the federal is reserved to the states kind of thing. And so it's like there'll be some questions about that. I can't remember if there's any specific about state sovereignty, but was it? Maybe it's one about state sovereignty, not rights reserved. I remember seeing one of those in here. Let's see, 4th, 6th. Ooh. Some of the time frames. There's some questions in here that might pop up. You probably saw them in the quiz. They give you a time frame in history and scenario, and you kind of have to identify what would that process for him or her be for the criminal justice system. It's like, okay.
Like in
This is the
1066.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know which one
Yeah,
you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a few of those are like that. It's
Yeah.
like I have some that are like 1166, 1215. I'm not well coordinated today. Everything's sticking together. That's gonna have to wait. I don't know what that is. Anyhow, 1215, that's gonna be the Magna Carta. So I forget what facet they brought up. One always pops up in my mind is the buying and selling of rights. But that's another one.
It's the Magna Carta one's about where it laid out the punishment or something.
There you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
I've got all these, most of them
Yeah.
memorized.
Yeah, so it's the basic stuff that's really, really important to know, because if you don't know, it, then
Yeah.
the whole framework's not there.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else was there? There was that one. Of course, know a little about like trial by ordeal, or trial by whatever.
That'll.
Yeah, trial by battle. There was that kind of stuff. Know the difference between adversary and inquisitorial systems. Let's see, what else is there? Of course, reasonable doubt, preponderance of the evidence, that kind of stuff. Because I don't think that phrase comes up, preponderance of the evidence, but actually it does, but not as a correct answer. So, know what probable cause is. Let's see here. The Bill of Rights originally applied to the blank government, stuff like that. Okay. Habeas corpus, you need to know what that is. It's going to give over the body. You need to know what the different pleas are. So you have, of course, guilty, not guilty, standing, no contest. The Alford plea, that's the one we talked about where they still maintain their innocence. Yeah, I talked about that. I was going to say something about satellite cases. So that's one where that might also have civil bearings. I can't remember. Because usually if you get a criminal conviction, you don't need a civil trial because that level of standard's even higher. So if you get a criminal conviction, you're in trouble. Let's see. What's that? Federal government requires a trial within blank number of days for a felony unless the requirement for a speedy trial is waived. Stuff like that.
Days.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that,
I had to look that one up.
yeah, I didn't know that one. I wouldn't know that one off the top of my head. Oh, 48 hour one, I remember. That one is it's so common. Because that one's one you run into every single time. Usually when it comes to trial, sometimes people want extra time, that kind of thing. Proof beyond reasonable doubt, you know that. Fourth Amendment, you know what that governs, you know, exclusionary rule a little bit. Talk about it a little bit. How many different criminal codes are there?
51
If I said the Brady rule, what am I talking about?
exclusionary.
Close, close. So exclusionary is the
Oh, exculpatory.
There you go.
I got it wrong.
Yeah. different X. Yeah. Yeah, so anything that shows the innocence or lends to showing the innocence of the accused. And on the prosecutorial side. If you're on the defense, you don't have to do that because you have that privilege against self-incrimination. So you don't have to hand over your case. Let's see, what else is in here? Another one of those. Affirmative defenses. Realize that whenever you do that, that burden of proof changes. In that case, also we mentioned those other terms, burden of persuasion, and then let's say there's another burden I can't remember. Let's see here. That the values of evidence, relevance, material, competent, right? Relevance applies to the facts at hand, built into the facts at hand. Reliable, that's the word I was looking for. I'm gonna draw a blank because I keep thinking about competence because that's the one that's the important one. Because if it's competent, that means it can't be inadmissible, right? You want to speak to the facts at hand. You want it to be. There's also the best evidence rule. I haven't gotten into that one. That's going to deal with forms later. And so if you're dealing with the copies of stuff, you'd rather have the original than the copy. That kind of thing. Relevancy. I'm forgetting the third one. I'll see it in a
Is
second.
it all of them? It's like irrelevant.
Well, if it's the first two and it can be cut into trial, it's not inadmissible, then it is competent.
Yeah.
And that's how that works. So you have the first two you've got to establish, got that, and you're allowed to get it in. It's good. You want it in. About the additive nature of evidence, we talked about that. There's one other class that was popping in my head a second ago. Let's see what pops back up in a second. Notices. You have to notice if you're in like one of the few things that the defense has to notify the prosecution for alibis. Right, so that way they can go and they can test that, see if those alibis are real. I haven't seen any questions so far about compulsory stuff like the subpoena processes. So at some point we'll probably be talking more about those in a later chapter. Talk about inquisitorial, accusatorial. SORNA, know what it is. Basically, the fact that it's a federal one, it doesn't matter what state you live in, it still applies, that kind of thing. Who creates the laws for the federal government? That's some of them. There you go. Congress.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm a little hard of hearing. I
Yeah.
heard half that question.
Yeah, so you start looking at Congress. From there, already talked about the crime. Your affirmative defense is inquisitorial defense. Appeals. Talked about whenever you're dealing with trials, the goal is a fair trial, not an accurate one in terms of its response. So that's not necessarily what's a guarantee there. Whenever you're looking at, so 7 second go. Civil cases, affirmative defenses. So whenever you're dealing with errors, realize that on appeal that's a decision that's made related to the harmfulness of those errors. That's the determining factor. It's how much of a bearing that had on the case. That's the decision that's made, whether or not it had a significant bearing in the outcome. It didn't. No changes needed. It did. Ooh, that's not good. Talk about Alfred plea. Plea bargaining. Know a little bit like charge stacking, overcharging, that kind of thing. But realize that whenever you plead down, like you can plead to lesser crimes, also you can plead to fewer crimes. So that's one of those things that they may have additional charges they drop, or say, I'll get X number of charges, let's go for this thing over here instead of all of these, that kind of thing. So let's make a deal. They are not deal. Let's see. Innocence, another scenario.
Do you think plea bargaining is a modus operandi for the prosecution?
I do.
You think it's standard? pretty much?
I do. I think it's criminal.
Yeah,
It's one of the things I don't know of any other better way to do it though, because it's like if you look at places where they get rid of plea bargaining,
yeah, I think it is too.
yeah, and then we stop enforcing the laws altogether because now there's way too much of a problem, right? And so, yeah, it's a nasty thing because anyone who's reasonable is going to see that math and not want to be in prison for very long if they think it's like, and so they'll take the deal. We talked about bail. Let's see. So you know what reasonableness is. We talked about that. Guilty. You know that one. Keeping important inferences. What is an inference? Inferences. Remember, you have direct evidence and circumstantial evidence. Those are two types. The difference between the two: circumstantial requires an inference. Direct speaks to it directly. Inferences are a connection that need to be drawn by the person who's hearing it in your jury. Res ipsa locutor. I don't remember that.
I have to read the question.
Yeah.
I don't remember what
Yeah,
it is.
I was like, anytime I run to Latin, it's like I try to remember what those words mean. I don't.
If you told me what the question was, I could tell you that's what
It's
it
a
is.
long one. That's one of the scenario ones. I'm not reading all that. Just be real. I said, you run into Latin. Res ipsa locutor. I should remember that. I don't. That's gonna drive me crazy because I like to remember that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna look that one up because it's like I didn't see it in here. I should remember that. You draw a blank on that one. Okay. Yeah, so here's where I start talking a little bit about drugs. Start talking about a little bit when you start getting into intent and actions, right? The drug one's a very common one. How do you get to the difference between personal use and your trafficking? Basically, once you start getting over amount that's a sizable amount, that's not really personal use anymore. Might be you're dealing with time, but there's so much there. That's probably gonna end up in other people's hands. So that's one of those that you'll get that charge based off of the amount. Past criminal behavior. So the fact that the person was historically criminal, is that something that should be allowed in the trial? No. Good. Typically someone's kept out of trial. That's something you'll learn at sentencing if you make it past, well, on a guilty verdict. Okay, circumstantial we've talked about, presumptions we've talked about. Burden of production. So talk about burden of production, burden of persuasion, burden of proof. So production means that you're the one responsible for producing the evidence. If you have that burden of proof, you have the burden of production kind of thing. Burden of persuasion, that's when you start getting into those inferences. Can you make those connections for those jurors clearer? So that way you increase the likelihood, the probability that they're going to do that, make those connections. Okay. Reasonable inferences. Sandstrom versus Montana. Mandatory or irrebuttable inferences are unconstitutional in the criminal process. That's what that one has to do with. Persuasion, we already talked about. All right, we're getting towards essay. Yes. All right, so there's a few different essays. You'll only get one. So it's kind of standard setup. So 45 multiple choice, one essay of your 3 options. Those are going to be first up. List the abuses of the English monarchy and the correction of those abuses remedied by the Constitution. So that's going to be in your textbook. Basically, what that's going to do is it's going to highlight major issues that were of the time that we were formed as a country and how we dealt with those. For example, a major one is going to be that probable cause. Okay? If you look at the history of that, what you're going to see is that before we determined it needed to be probable, as in more than likely, just increasing that it's more than likely, there was no threshold for the magnitude needed. How much evidence do you need? I just don't like this guy. That's actually the way that it ran down. If I can remember the court case, I can give you a citation for it if I can. Basically, what you'd be looking at is in that era, British soldiers would just have warrants for people's arrest, and all they needed was a name. Looks like it's you. That's it. All right. Next up, that's going to be option number 1. Option number 2, discuss, describe, compare, and contrast direct and circumstantial evidence. Give examples of each. So you need to be able to identify what they have in common. In fact, they're used differently. How so? And examples should be easy enough after that. It's a murder. There's a dead body. Ooh. Yeah. Guy's got a knife sticking out of his chest. Yeah. Okay. That's direct. I think that's what killed the guy. Right? Indirect. That was so-and-so's knife. Ooh. Yeah. That kind of a thing. Okay. And then the third one are going to be define, discuss, compare, contrast, same kind of thing. Guilty, not guilty, and no contest. Why would you plead no contest rather than guilty? What? Alfred pleaded that one. But if you want to talk about Alfred in there too, because it's one of those, it's a little bit different from guilty and no contest. And that gets you through the review for exam 1. Yay. We are done for today. Any questions? No?
Piece of cake.
Cool. Yeah, you'll have 90 minutes to take the test. That's plenty of time. If you take quizzes, I think I set the quizzes up for unlimited attempts. Sometimes I only set them up for 3 attempts, but usually by the time you take them 3 times down that, you kind of have an idea of what kind of questions are going to be on here. If it's unlimited, take it until you no longer want to. Highest one counts all the time. And if it doesn't do that, let me know because I clicked the wrong button. That's what that means.
So did you say that the test is unlimited? Is that what you?
No, not the test. The quiz. The test, I would like to do that, but I do
Get that
the
on
quizzes
tape.
that way. Yeah, so you can have as much practice as you want. And that's a little bit of a, yeah, there's a tiny little bit of pressure there, but not much. Let's see, what else was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say, there's an event taking place over in it's the web building at 4 o'clock. We're having a how to have political discourse civilly. I think that's what it is, how to have political discourse civilly kind of thing. And so I'm curious as to what that is, because it's just kind of a conversation. But that'll be at 4 o'clock over at the web building. So there's live room. I'll be over there talking. I'm going to try to be a little less simple, I guess. I'm going to ask some big questions, see what to say.
So is it an question and answer?
I don't know. I think it's more of a conversation. I don't know how big the room is or how many people are going to be there or anything like that. I just know that it's going to be 4 faculty members and wide range of opinions, I think. And my thing is like I'm usually way out in left field, like left, right doesn't matter to me. I'm like way off topic. It's like whenever your methods class, I'll ask the first question asked in there is like, what is love? Why? Because that's going to start to explain how life works for you. Right? It's like, where are we at? Well, that's a good question, right? And that's probably where I would start with that.
What's the airspeed velocity of an emulating sparrow?
Depends. Are we talking African Or are we talking?
European or
European.
English or?
That's
Or
what it is, European
Yeah.
or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're talking old movies.
Yeah, I like that. One. That's a good one. All right, well, with that, you guys, I will bid you adieu until Wednesday. We'll pick up with chapter 5 there. And have a great day. I'll go ahead and open up that exam here momentarily. It'll be open for at least 1 week. Have a good.
So what? Is it 4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4 o'clock. It was there's, I think the reply was like literally.
I can go look at it.
Yeah. You've seen it around here earlier.
I'm just,
It's on the table.
is it up there?
Yeah.
It's like simple.
How to have civil discourse, political
know.
discourse, something like that.
I doubt if I'll go. I'll go back to my cave and
Yeah.
read.
Well, my big thing, and I don't, that's let that go. If it's not, that doesn't matter. My
Yeah.
biggest thing is the civil part. There's a
How
guy,
to have respectful political discussion.
there you go.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And,
Yeah, politics is a pretty heated debate.
yeah.
Can be.
Looks like my favorite guy to ever talk about there is a guy, he's a blues musician, old guy now. He was old when he was giving the talks back in like the early 2000s. His name's Daryl Davis.
Uh-huh.
And he was the black guy who went and befriended a grand or imperial dragon, something like that.
Yeah, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah. And so it's like, that's because he just wanted to learn. It's like, how can you hate me when you don't know me? I need to understand that.
Yep. That's very true.
Yeah. And as he went through it, it's like, okay, by the time we're done, a couple hundred KKK members gave up their hoods. That's how you do it. You talk to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm from the north. You can probably tell that. Anyway.
Yeah.
My family was on the northern side when they fought the Civil War.
Yeah. I have family that was in, was it Tennessee? It's really funny because the guys,
Oh, yeah, I remember you
Mhm.
said that.
yeah, Colonel Fielding Hurst.
Was he a Confederate or is he Yankee?
Oh, he
was
was,
Yankee, wasn't he?
he fought for the